As some details of this connection has been shared with you as well, we will go just a little bit into our own story as it's been started as well. We don't actually call ourselves Pleiadians, but this is the name how the energetic signature on your world is recognized. We wish for full discussion because we don't tend to always answer your questions by simple answer. We tend to go into more depth with you. Our intention, general intention for creating such communication is to share our point of view. We don't necessarily call it the knowledge because we do acknowledge our own filters which are in front of our own eyes, if we had any as a physical beings. So we don't necessarily call everything what we say to be the truth. It is the idea, it is the opinion we share with people, and whether it helps or not is simply on you and how you use the knowledge, the information. Do you understand the difference?
Mm-hmm.
All right. As beings or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, we are one part of a structure which has been always surrounding your world, which has been always providing something to be a guidance or the hand reaching out to be helping you out. This is just one form, the kind of a verbal communication we are having. There are other beings which are always there, that's their job, there to be helping you no matter what you are going through, as individuals but also as collective. That's been established on most of the worlds. None goes on himself alone. Nobody goes alone. There are always establishments, whether it is environment or it is the soul guidance. Some of you are familiar with the term blueprint. Before a flower sprouts from the ground, actually it first creates the blueprint of the first leaf above the ground, above the soil, and then it grows into it. It embodies the blueprint of it, the shape of the leaf. Everything is guided, and there are always systems set to be helping for growth and development. We are one of those who provide such help. And without any more stories of our part, we want to invite you to ask us any questions you might have.
Can you help us or give us guidance into how we can grow into our blueprint, like you mentioned there, please?
Yes, we will elaborate on the question as well, and we do thank you for being the first one to break the silence. First part will be about the blueprint, which is mostly misunderstood. You are embodying your blueprint as you are on physical level for sure, and you are embodying your blueprint on other levels as well. You might know those of mental, emotional and spiritual, and we would not have at this moment the words, the descriptions for the other layers, but there are more layers of the blueprint one is reaching. Second of all, the guidance goes with generally what the soul has decided to come to experience, although this time we will focus on the more group collective guidance, because these questions we feel is not directed only towards you but towards us as collective. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. First and foremost, we would encourage you to, in any case of asking for help, to be feeling the essence of you. And because most of you are not familiar in that stage with what in your world is called empathy, you know empathy, but you are not consciously connecting to other being who, for example, sits beside you, so you are not used to feeling as they feel in their body. That's why we want you to really feel how it feels to be I, how it feels to be me. Each and every one of you are different, not only because you look different, but as you know, you also have different DNA. That's the first physical manifestation of blueprint. It creates something else, some code which tells the body how it should look, how it should grow, what color of hair you have at the end. So you understand that each of you are different, but then also you have to understand that in the being, in the individual of every one of you, the feeling of I is different. It's very unique to every single one of you. So the most important guidance we would give is to realize, to become familiar how it is to be I. But that's the hard thing to do, because you are so much used to being you that you don't realize these things. You're not consciously becoming aware of how it feels to be I. Do you understand what we mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In different examples of different civilizations, there are people who are more able to use the skill of empathy to be consciously connecting to the other, whether it is a person sitting beside them on the chair or the other who lives in a different town or different location. They are more familiar to these feelings of, for a moment, feeling to be somebody else. That's what gives them the great ability to actually acknowledge and appreciate the feeling of I. Does it make sense?
Yes.
One of those ways how you can more consciously become aware of the feeling of I, of the self, is to be starting with the way how you feel. Let's say, for example, your left and right arm. They are both different, and you do realize that. And you might have from time to time different, we would say, motions or different feelings of self in different parts of your body. That's a good exercise how to start feeling the self. Because then you can expand the awareness on the whole being, which goes also beyond the physical, because you don't just are being by your skin and your skeleton structure. Your energy, as you know, reaches beyond your physicalities. So then you can feel how this whole thing feels. How it actually feels to be I. Because this is the essence of you, it is one of those expressive ways how to feel the essence, we would rather say. And in other words, we are asking you to tune more into yourself, but not into the head. The head is often programmed. The head is often told how things should be and how things are not. And it's sometimes even limited by the physical environment around you, because they simply do tell you what is and isn't possible. But the feeling of self is not a mental, it's not based on the mental structure. It goes beyond that. So if you are able to tune into your own self, then it's much more easier to receive guidance. And receive guidance, we don't mean in terms of receiving tasks or being told what to do, being told what not to do. It simply means that the flower which is in the ground is receiving all it needs, the nutritions from the ground, the light from the sun, and is surrounded by everything what is giving life to it. But it also is giving life back to those environments around it. And it lives without ever thinking a thought. Does it make sense?
Yes.
For the group of people, or even the larger audiences, this is the answer we give for a question of guidance, because it must be always directed to every single one of you, but we don't get the chance of telling each one of you how you may receive guidance and how you may receive guidance. So the broader topic comes with consciously feeling and realizing, becoming familiar and becoming friendly as well, because first of all it might be for some people a bit uncomfortable situation to start feeling the self. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there an exercise or a method that would help you get in touch with feeling yourself?
Yes, one of those we have mentioned is the arms. But second one, you can use exercises which has been also expressed in books and in books which are focused on physicalities of the body, which is exercises, or exercises in a way of mental exercises, or you can just simply go with how you feel energy wise or emotional wise, or what you think. So be careful with the thinking, but if your thinking isn't we are looking for the right word here, influenced heavily by the ego, which can also play the role, then you will be able to realize how you actually think about certain parts of your body, or how you think about your energy here and your energy here, or how you think or feel if you touch your skin over here, or if you press your bone over here. You most of the time have to start with the body, because it's the easiest thing for you, and you are very much programmed to accept the body since you think it's yours. If you are used to any sort of transferring energy, whether it is healing or whether it is something with intuition or even creativity, you can try to imagine how things feel in sense of when you are transmitting or transferring energy from one point of your body to the other one. Like if you are moving on a boat in the ocean, but then to do the same with no movement at all, and just to let the energy play the game, and you being the observer and being realizing what's happening in the body and how do I feel this, and does it say anything, does it feel like something I'm familiar with? What do my legs do? is there anything going in my mind? Is there any program coming up? If it's judgment or if it's curiosity or something else. When every morning you are preparing your breakfast and you take the cup of coffee or tea, only you know how that sensation feels, because nobody can do it for you. Does make sense?
Yeah.
When you are closing your eyes before you fall asleep at night, there are some programs running in your mind and you are so much used to them because some of them are those who are putting you asleep, but there's still always the emotional response to those moments, but it's only yours and only you can feel how it is, how it feels. And either if you feel like expanding on the question which has been asked, please do so, or start with another question or a comment.
Then may I ask, if we get in touch with our own inner being and feeling of our own body, then we expand it out into our energy field, and then can we touch another person's energy field and feel how they are feeling?
We would stay with you for a while. We would advise to stay with yourself. It is not exercise or a technique which is meant to be allowing you to empathize or use the empathy for touching others. There are some contradictions going if you do this in this order. We would ask, what's the purpose of having the intention of touching other, or we feel there is another question underneath here.
Just feeling how another person feels and getting in touch with them.
You first have to master your own self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always pleasant to know how the other actually feels in their own skin, in their body. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
You being strong and you knowing how you feel. The first thing, we will spill the beans here a little bit. The first thing which will happen with you when you consciously reach yourself is that the thoughts disappear. First few days or even weeks might be feeling to you as a very, very new, raw experience to you. We know you all have been in your bodies and you have been having different sorts of experiences, but creating a relationship with the really, really inner self, and we're not talking about the inner child right now or any of this, can be very new experience for a person, and we would not use it to be able to reach out somewhere else, especially into other person's inner world, let's say. Did we answer your question sufficiently?
Yes, thank you.
How much practice would you need to develop this? Coming to it.
That depends on you. That depends on you. The things don't go singularly. You are very much used to thinking, I'll take this first and I'll take this second and then I will do this. When you go into how we refer to the inside world, there are things in play already. The mind is playing its own thought games, and the body is feeling somehow, things are used to, things are somehow, we would almost say the word set, but things are not set in a way that they cannot be changed. You are very much used to living your lives, and your body is used to functioning as it has been, and your mind is used to doing what it has been doing. So by this you are a little bit changing the course, let's say, of what would be happening otherwise. So you have to be watching a little bit for what is actually happening when I do this exercise, and how much time you would actually devote to it. Depends how you will enjoy it, and whether you will still be finding the same intentions and same reasons in doing so. One thing is to be talking about those experiences in a setting such this, but it's very different experience to be home on your own, thinking if you will do this or that exercise, because the perception changes. The perception tends to, in people, tends to change quite quickly. Does that make sense?
And is something like a candle or a quiet area or an aroma, any of those helpful, or just?
Yes. What is helpful to you is helpful to you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. We would maybe not encourage the candle, the light, because it your eyes tends to find a spot to be looking at, and it can be distracting as well. But as we said, our advice was for the group. We were not advising individually, and as you are all different, you are finding your own ways how you are realizing and consciously feeling who you are. If there are any ways what you think will help you, then go ahead and do them and try.
And can I ask?
Yes.
Another question. Do ye communicate with angel beings, or do they exist for ye, or what relation, if any, do you have with them?
Angel beings. First of all, we will say the broad answer, which will help you to understand at the end. The universe is full of communication trails. There are trails and there are networks. There are, how would we describe this? There are ways which are like roads on your earth. They are established, and some of them, the shorter ones, can be in short time changed or built or re-established as well. So do we communicate with angel beings? We are able to communicate with quite a large number of beings or anything what tends to have consciousness, what tends to be responsive to us. The second part is angel beings is your perception. We will say it this way. You've been, we will say gently, you've been told a few archetypes and archetypal functions of certain beings, of certain programs, which always have some sort of a purpose, some sort of a agenda from the one who either set them up or from the one who introduced you to those archetypes. So would we be able to communicate to those beings who you call the angelic beings? Yes, we would. And sometimes some branches of us, some layers of us, because we are living more in layers than in like family societies. We are like based in layers in our own world. Some layers communicate and are established with those beings as well, because they just simply lay on the end and on the beginning of the road. So if something comes to us from the direction, we know it's from them, and then we respond. That's just how job sometimes is done. Did we answer your question, or do you want to ask us more?
Do you ever become a physical being?
The consciousness which are us has or could have been described as our past, as if we closed ourselves into the time frames of linear time. If we did this, and if we went like, in the time backwards, it would end up in physical beings of some sort of a physicality which in your world would be perceived as a body. Yes, but a long time we moved from these mortals because they simply didn't work for us. It was, you see, when you combine the dense, what we call your realities, the dense realities, with the ideas of consciousness, it doesn't really go well all the time. So for us, it's been much more easy and much more efficient. It was the only natural progression was to leave the bodies behind, because the way how we function would never be possible if we were still somehow, well, use your term, incarnating ourselves into some sort of a dense body as your bodies are. So yes, we have our past experience in bodies, but not anymore.
Thank you.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Our job, one of our job is to be translating the ideas from us through the mental frameworks which you would understand into this world where you people could grasp it in a more global fashion, not to be describing things one-on-one that the understanding is only in one person's mind, but that it's shared in a way that almost anybody can tune in and perhaps to decide whether they want to be influenced somehow by what we provide. So we are trying to describe things in a easy, simple manner for you to understand.
And how can we best use what you're describing to the betterment of, say, mankind?
We wouldn't go for the mankind because you are you are a person, and there is a reason why you are living as a society, still as a one being beside the other one. Does that make sense? You are not yet, and for a long time you might not be collective as, let's say, we are. You still keep your own mind, you still keep you are allowed to have your own guards. If you don't want to give an emotion out, you have your ways how to do it. If you don't want to give your opinion out, you have your ways how to do it. There's a reason for that. So you live your own life. It's a much different game, and we're not saying better, we're saying different game, being a collective, one collective based from cells or whatever you call it. So we would say, back to your question, if you want to use the information we provide, use them for yourself. If they are somehow supposed to, it's the very dangerous term, supposed to help the society or the world, they will. But sometimes some things need to crumble before other things can be built. So, and the very first part of your question is how whatever we provide, but also what others provide. We don't want this to be solemnly on our behalf of you being dependent, you being only listening to us, whatever information is going around you, just see how it sits with you. And firstly, you will, because you are human beings after all, you will go through the mental filter first. That's where the judgment comes into, which is not a bad thing. We are just pointing it out. And if you get through the filter of the mental part, you might be able to see how it fits with you, with your very, very self, or just with certain parts of it, as with your intuition, which is somehow connected to your mental part, but it's not absolutely coming from the same source, or your emotional self. Just to see if it's something what moves you into the excitement a little bit, or if it's something what doesn't resonate with you at all, or if it's something what almost resonates with you, but there are things which might be maybe holding you back. It's your fears, your idea of self-limitations or others. If you feel like you are having a good day, whatever you did, whatever you used, whatever you did, that's how you know that it's helping someone. First to you, and then if it helps others, and if you are even able to recognize and know that something what you do, what you like, is maybe helping others, or it just makes them smile, again it creates the emotion and all these things vibrate out to others and others, that's how you know. But also we have to put there the second part of the story. If you're having the other day, the other example of your day, and you sad or cranky or something, you can't be beating yourself up for that. Does make sense? Does it?
I'm still a little confused as to getting in touch with the feeling, and is it, say, through a meditation or through just thinking and then accepting that those thoughts are okay, whatever they are?
We are not exactly suggesting any form of thought which should be accepted.
Okay.
Tell us a bit more and we can try to help you. What is the part of confusion? Because you are saying you are not sure.
In just listening, I'm just wondering how different is what you're suggesting is to going into a meditation and just thinking what you're thinking and then accepting the outcome.
Well, first of all, meditation can be one of those things you do, and if you like them, just go and do them. That's all right. But your description of thinking what you're thinking and accepting the outcome isn't really what we had in mind. Thinking what I'm thinking is letting something else to go on and maybe to take different roads, but thinking what you're thinking and accepting the results. We are not suggesting a different mindset entirely, a different set of thoughts which should have been accept it or not accept it. We are simply suggesting you, first of all, being comfortable with who you are as the bigger person, as we would say, consciously knowing this is how I feel, this is actually how I feel, and then seeing if anything gives it a little twist. If you hear an idea on a radio or coming from also different sources, and it gives you something what you might feel as an excitement or joy or feeling of adventure, then to try how it would actually be if you would be doing the exercise or something. That's how it would answer how you can use those informations we provide for the good of self first. We just took away the part of you talking about for the better part of the world. Does it make sense?
I think I'm getting there.
It's okay for us if you, let's say, tell us what was the space where the confusion arises, where it's not maybe really sinking in, or if anybody else can chip in.
I was just wondering when you were speaking there, if if the senses would play a part in that, in bringing us to that place you're speaking about,
This you mean the 5 senses?
Yeah,
You have
just appreciating touch or taste or vision, whatever, would
Yes.
that help?
Yes, but they are heavily programmed.
Oh, are they?
Heavily,
Okay.
yes.
In what way would that be?
You see, if let's say all of you would try spicy food, it would taste to most of you very spicy. It's not really dependent on who you are as the being what we are trying to describe. If somebody will be flashing a torch into your eyes, you won't feel you won't see anything. It'll be white light. That's not almost as we are saying. No matter who you are, those experiences will be almost the same. Music is and more we are getting closer to the creative part of the physical manifestation, which can be expressed through your senses. More removing that part, the more you could use them. But it also depends how you've been used to all these receptions of senses. If the softness is more comforting to you than the touch of shattered glass, it doesn't necessarily mean that you do have a better relationship with a soft pillow. Do you understand? A huge part of those environmental causes which would be alerting your senses had been already established in your mind, in your body, in your brain.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear on it, because if I'm only asking really here, please. It's just that, if one is in nature, if I'm in nature,
Yes.
and for me it's a beautiful experience, does that not support me to come in?
Yes, but help us with, tell us, It's a beautiful experience of what?
I'm just thinking at the moment as I'm speaking, if I'm in the woods
Yes.
and the trees are around me
Yes.
and the leaves and the sun is coming through, there's a dappled light, and that just lifts my spirit.
It does. And let us ask you, how would you feel in a hospital?
Yeah.
How would you feel walking in between those rooms full of people
In a hospital.
in a hospital?
Um,
Would you have the same experience?
you know, it's funny, I could have a very different experience,
Yes.
obviously, but I could as well be okay in that experience too, but
And
not always.
And we
you
do
know.
like your answer because it's be okay.
Mm.
Somehow it says, I would be able to carry myself and my inner self still there. I wouldn't feel alone, I wouldn't feel that much vulnerable maybe. And that's a good example of your own personal structure which has been established already. What we are trying to say, if most of you went for a walk in the woods, most of you would feel better because of the environment there, because of the energy there. And if most of you will be walking 2 days or living 2 days in a hospital, most of you wouldn't feel that good.
Mm.
It's conditioned by the environment. They want you to find something what is not conditional,
Yeah.
where it doesn't really matter about what colors of a room are his on the walls. Something what is yours. Something what only you know, and it is more dependent on either how you are playing with all those levels of emotional or physical or touch or something in your body. Not on whether it's sunny outside or it's been raining for 3 days. Does it make sense?
Yes, it's clear now. Thank you very much.
It helps. It helps if you would be exposing yourself all those environments like the woods or the walk on a beach or whatever it is for you. Most of you would tend to feel better, somehow better. That makes sense. It's not you really doing the work. It's you letting others to be happy and shining around you. But it's not you doing the work.
And then may I ask, is it's really about getting in touch with your inner self?
Or we do sense the second part of the question. Because if it's not, what is it about?
It's about touching your inner being, isn't it? And then being in touch with your inner self and the experience within.
The experience within, but you have been living these lives to be exposed at the end. Not to be only living the life within. Our idea is that you have the anchored idea of how it feels, not who you are, that's too much of the mental there, but how it feels to be me. And then going around the world and being exposed to those other people, other interactions, other events and situations. And then it gets into those high and low points and what do I do and how do I do this. But it's a different story if you do learn to be constantly tapping into yourself, not constantly all the time, but being so much familiar with your own self. It feels different, it is different. It physiologically changes some structures in your body, how your body response to certain events. If you are ending up in a horrifying situation, and yet you still feel, and you still have the strong relationship with yourself, so you don't lose yourself. You don't have the situation where the psyche would decide to leave the body just for a moment from a trauma or something. You also will tend to have less of those moments where you are only experiencing yourself through the mind and forgetting your own body, forgetting your own self. Then it gets into a who, when, why, and what. Walking in this world and representing only the part of the mental structure is not why you came here. And it's perfectly okay to do it if it happens. So we don't bring any, our intention is not to bring any shame or blame here. But as the question was, what could we do? This is what you could do. Does it make sense?
Yes.
And did we answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Can I just ask,
Yes.
just following that, because I'm listening to something at the moment that suggests that we lose the sense of I. You know, that there comes a point where we have to lose that. But
Yes.
am I correct in saying that you're suggesting we actually have to really know that feeling? Is it? Or I'm not sure.
Do you want to tell us more about what your source is suggesting?
Pardon?
Do you want to share with us more of what your source of information is suggesting that the appropriate response is, so we can further comment back?
Well, it's just my understanding of something that I'm looking at the moment is that, you know, the importance of losing that sense of me.
In order to what?
In order to grow.
In order to grow.
Yeah, or in order, I don't know, really. That, you know, the sense of me, according to my understanding of this teaching, is the ego, and that
Yes.
the importance of losing that in order that something else can come in, you know. That's my understanding of that teaching that I'm listening to at the moment.
And this is where we come to almost the start of our session, where we say that information from us are guidance to be taken appropriately towards your mindset. We will come back and we will in our own way answer your question. But if you have decided to host an idea or take on a mindset which is in any way contradicting to part of what we are saying or what others are saying, we don't suggest that you just throw it away and take on the new thing what you hear, whether it is from us or somebody else. There's the terms and conditions here. But then, to answer your question, we have been advocating for the ego. We have encountered the people who are almost demonizing the ego as something what is very hurtful and very almost toxic for your beings, and we don't agree with the idea. Ego in a certain way is what keeps you alive. Without the sense of I, you would first of all not physically be, because in certain couple of days the sense of I, the lack of sense of I wouldn't let you survive any longer. But furthermore, from our point of view, the sense of I must be always there, and ego is playing a role in it. But people very often tend to see the ego as something what takes over, and it doesn't have to be that way. Ego is very often the source of, how will I say this gently, misunderstandings and maybe these things as a greed or something, or anger or something. It may be, and very often it is. But the ego as its own cannot be in your mind. It's such a function, such a mechanism, which cannot be taken away, cannot be broken down without real damage of the person's psyche. The ego is, in a certain way, it's guarding the psyche to be at the performance stage, to be doing things what the human psyche is supposed to do. And one part of it is to be protecting the body. We will just shortly comment. Our point of view is always to be owning the sense of I, because you came here to experience just that. If you wanted to be again from your vocabulary, soul somewhere in the heavens or in the any other realms, you wouldn't really be going for this experience. You would be getting everything from being there, but not connecting yourself to the body and to the land, to this specific, whether you mean planet or the land as a geographical place. And you wouldn't be having an experience which separates you. The separation is so real here. You just lose the sense of what we have, the collectiveness, the we, what gives us the we, the belonging in the group, because we are a group. And you lose this. Just to grow into the I, which can be tricky because there are all sorts of things being said about the ego and the I. Does it make sense? We are not at this as a stage for the group able to fully explain this concept, because we would love to hear how your concept of the losing I looks and what it means from the source where you are, or whether it is from your mind connecting different things from different sources. But this is the basic idea of how we advise people to be living their lives, group of their own single lives on the earth.
It's lovely, thank you.
The subject of ego is often the tricky one, because there are many points of view and there are examples which are taken too much. People tend to say that the ego is the root of the general unhappiness in your world, and then the differences which cause other issues as well. And yet we are advocating for the I, which is at the end connected to the ego as well. Anybody else comment or a question for the same topic or for the other one?
Can I ask about the children?
Children.
Two different age groups. There's the younger children being born now over the last few years. They appear to be quite different.
Yes, yeah.
And misunderstood.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can explain a little bit about that, number one.
Yes.
And secondly, if you can maybe give guidance how we can help them. So that's one part of my query, and then the second part is about the older children, the teenagers, who appear to be very, very troubled. And again, if you can explain a little bit about that,
Yes.
or how we can help them.
Give us one by one. We will much more easier not to be taking all the memory.
Okay.
of the
Okay, can we start with the older ones
Yes.
first, the teenagers first?
teenagers. We would take it a little bit from broader point of view.
Okay.
As some of you know, from our point of view, your world as it is has come to new era. It's we will say then in brackets new era. The year 2012 has been, we will very gently say, starting something else, and it's also beginning of the end of what you have been living before. This is very, we are careful of the words because we don't want to have you misunderstand that there are two words colliding or something. In a very simple nutshell, one contract has finished and is running out. A new contract has been signed already. But it's not that simple because the new contract is alive and it's been adjusted and it's been being changed by you and by what's happening around you and by your perception and by your, this time it is the energy of where you are moving from the heart through the mind somewhere else. So the old contract was very much set and had its own stages of development somehow lined up, and those from, as we have said at the beginning of the system, who are helping were just almost following certain scenarios. There were things which had to happen with the planet, talking about the locations of certain people, talking about the way how the world is evolving as the planet. Things were set, things were almost very easily written, let's say. But now something new is coming, which even we are not really sure where it's going to go. We can just say what we feel and what we are perceiving right now. So, and those children are one of those first, another gentle term is those volunteers who came and who knew that that's one of those hardest times for them to be born into the parenthood, into those systems, whether it's a schooling system or the quote unquote societal thinking, which has been set by the old system, which has been created in the old contract. So, in other ways, we will say this: things need to be done, and there are people who will do them. You are not anymore in this stage where you are waiting for those pioneers who will have enough courage to be one of those millions who will stand up and who will say what they think and who will do what they think. At those moments you are receiving those in millions. And those who were born by your years after the year 1984 and before, around 1892, or those who have been having the hardest times, because they hit the wall. The psyche, their psyches are not accepting anymore parts of the old world, what maybe you as parents as well were expressing to them.
And how can we help them?
We will. this part of we, how can we help them? We will just for a moment focus on the, in a gentle term, all the generations of the parents and grandparents, because there are some evolutionary differences in those who we can be addressing afterwards. Those of you who are of the old generations who are having grandchildren or grandchildren in those years, born in those years we just mentioned, hold space and gently be just who you are, because they need to be interacting with you. You can't be changing yourself, all of a sudden rewiring yourself who you have been for so many years to be matching them. It is nice to come the halfway and to offer the understanding and the help, but you have to stay who you are. These things must be experienced. That's the difference. How will you allow them to grow and learn if you will somehow dissipate it, if you allow the threshold of the difference? Does make sense?
Some of it does, but it appears that this newer generation, the teenagers, appear very challenged by some of us who are at the end of the old way.
Yes.
And if we understand that they're challenged with the changes, my understanding from what you said is that for us to stay as we are, to try and meet them halfway, is that as much as we can do?
That's their work to do.
It's their work.
That's their work to do.
Yeah.
You have done your work. We are talking about the time of your times. You've been born in a society which gave you belief system, which gives you values which you used for your life, and you are still using them until now.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think these things are we will say these are your lives there, and we don't mean to be disrespectful to them and to say, oh, this is how I live and you live whatever you want to live, but you can be living still your life and telling them, oh, just so you know, these are the old ways how we did this, and you are now thinking that it's not suitable to you or wrong.
Okay, so
In a way of understanding, not being looking for solutions from your sides.
Okay, so even if we understand that by us living our way as we know it now, and we understand that our way is frustrating or difficult for them, we have to acknowledge that but continue on our path.
This is not exactly what we are saying.
Okay,
You will be living your lives no matter what,
okay.
because there are some the time before you are
Mhm.
changing yourself to something else is just not the reason to be doing something for them. But you will be living your lives, but you can be helpful in holding the space
Okay.
of you living your life and being and acknowledging the differences there. But we will want to explain the first part first. Holding the space means that they are able to come into your world. That's what we mean by your values and by your belief
Okay.
system, and experience it in a non-confrontational way.
Okay.
There is a tendency from those younger generations to be just hitting the wall, but that needs to stop. If you hit the wall, what do? You acknowledge the wall, and you are either trying to walk around the corner not to hit the wall, or you are coming up with a solution how, let's say, to climb over the wall, or how to break it here and how to break it there, or how to build something around the wall that you can walk up and jump over the wall. But going and hitting the wall and hitting the wall and hitting the wall. Some people need this. Some people do. But the wall must be experienced somehow. In order to come with new solution. In order to come up with a system which perhaps in its own stage, in its first stage, will have the idea of breaking some walls. Does it make sense?
I think so. So therefore, does that mean that we are to trust that they will find their own way through it, no matter how difficult it may appear to be?
Somebody will, but we don't want you to give all the power to them and saying, well, this is now your turn to kind of show up and see who you are and show us how you can solve the situation. The reason why they are coming in those large numbers, and this is most of the time like almost all of them right now, or in these generations who are now the teenagers, it is because it's not possible, or at some stage in a few years from now, it will not be possible not to see these things, not to see the difference. There already is a lot of talking about those differences, but very few people actually went and experienced both sides, because they are, let's say, maybe even a bit too young for those things. We will say this. You as the grandparent or the auntie or whoever you are, if you are a neighbor across the road, first of all, and the main is for you to be okay with what you live. There is no help in you feeling blame or pressure for not doing something what's supposed to help the next generation. It is nice feeling, nice intention of to be helping, but you have to realize those lines, those boundaries, and those set corridors of certain walls. Where you are, where are they? You can be reaching out the hand and saying, I'm here, I can show you a little bit of what has been done, the ways how we would do things, with non-judgmental, non-confrontational way, and maybe in your safe space to offer them to experience it, and then from those blended experiences for them to figure out what's going to happen next. And we have to say, people very often tend to focus on the solution, like if it was one sentence or one paragraph or this is the new way how society is going to work. It's not going to be like this. It will be more organic, more that and things are already coming up, something will be working in a different way, which is firstly accepted, but then the scale will change, and then people will almost take it over on different places, and things will be more mixed in the society. You are maybe too much thinking on the mental level about those developments. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And you also wanted to mention the younger children, the very young children.
Yeah.
We feel there is something more you want to say about them.
They appear to be different again.
Yes.
Than what the teenagers that I'm aware of at the moment.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of troubles with them.
Yes.
But now
those hitting walls. Examples.
What
yes.
we would call here as mental health issues.
Yes.
You know, feeling suicidal, feeling depressed, not sleeping, lots of trauma for what we would feel is no apparent reason, but with the awareness that they are more spiritually maybe evolved, whatever, I'm not quite sure. But then the younger generation again seem to be coming in very differently. a lot of them seem to be labelled autistic, which I feel is possibly a misunderstanding of maybe they have a different intelligence or they're different. And there seems to be a lot of them being grouped.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, can we get a little bit more understanding?
We will first cover the more autistic children. Whatever label you put them, it's we know it wasn't personally you, but it's the label which is for staying with them for some time, and it will be most likely relabeled. But again, the main thing is to be able to see, to be able to perceive the numbers, the growing numbers, which will again most likely expand into people seeing the difference, people from both sides, maybe the old and the young, as judgmental as we say it, to be able to realize that something new, something different is coming, something different is happening, what hasn't been happening, and also to realize what actually causes the issue itself. Why is it all of a sudden so much talk about those autistic children? There's a reason why, and we will now put it into the invisible societies and why the society is now looking at those groups of children and seeing them with their eyes almost closed and turning their heads and saying, what's happening here? There's a reason for all this thing happening, and this is also coming from the old world, as we would say. Somehow we will very gently say just a part of the reason we are talking about is people got used to seeing people who are young and they are getting education and then they are going to work, and people are used to seeing this and calling this normal. And then something else, group of young people keeps coming up, which are perceived by the society as those who are most likely not being able to, who will most likely not be able to follow this path, and that does something in the psyche. It's a question of how we have lined up certain expectations on people, and that this very concept needs to be addressed, and it's touching all other parts of your today's society, at least by the modern standards. Like, how do we educate them? What do we do with them? What about the social welfare? What do we do with them? Where do they belong? Do they belong somewhere? Do we put them somewhere, or do we let them to do something? This whole thing needs to be addressed, because there is something going on in the old part of the psyche of the older world. We're not talking about the age groups, of course, here, you understand. It's not able to process it because it doesn't fit the older ways. Does it make sense?
Yes.
It's not about finding cures for them, and it's not about healing them, and it's not about finding what suits them, finding a space, a box where we could put them and where maybe they will actually feel happy because this and this is not there and this is actually there. And do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
We still feel there is something. So one question from you.
I'm looking for the word. To interweave or instead of it like being a straight line between us from the older train of thought or beliefs or habits or patterns, to blend. How can we all blend in and help each other?
We will give you.
I'm trying to find the right word now, but I realise that our age group or our generation, we're coming to the end of an era, and the teenagers and all of that, they're like another bridge, and then there's already another group coming in. And before we move on, you know, we're the elder lemons now, before we move on, those of us that have some understanding, is it possible for us to help a little bit more?
Yes, we will with the idea of us.
And I don't need to know even now, but just to know
Yes,
that we can
yes.
do.
Yes, we will of course repeat what we have said tiny bit before. Sharing, holding and sharing the space.
Yeah.
Sharing. Second of all, keeping something what has to stay here, for no matter who comes afterwards, is skills, and we mean crafts. This is so much. These new what would you would call them new people will be so much moving in the combination of mental and spiritual perspective. Something really needs to be here what will ground them and what will tell them the basics, how to eat, how to look after yourself, how to fix up things, how to make the roads.
Yes,
How to literally
that's
make
what I
the
needed
roads.
to know. What do they need from us? That was my question that I couldn't find.
Yes,
What do they need from us?
those things which are most natural for the old world people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How to bake the cake.
Yeah. Okay.
It
I
sounds
get it now.
sounds silly.
Oh,
It
no.
sounds
Yeah.
silly, but you can see these things
Mhm.
as together because all things kind of go
Mhm.
together in worlds. Things are moving more to the you would call it digital era.
Yeah.
Things are literally disappearing
Mm.
from the old world because old world was based on the dense physical materials, ideas, thoughts, beliefs, values of being somewhere, having a home for your people is a house,
Mhm.
not for them.
Yeah.
For them home is something else which can be changing
Mhm.
month to month.
Okay. Thank you.
But we do always we have to stress it out. You have to be okay with what's happening here.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's your job to
Mhm.
make yourself okay with that. Not to be lying to yourself, not to be pretentious, not to be saying okay or I'll be fine because I have to be fine. If there is something, you are those helpers who are still here to help
Mhm.
those in a nice way. And there will always be some clashes,
Mm.
physical or ideas
Mhm.
and all sorts of. But if you help those people to stay grounded, not all the time, when they come, when you see them, when they come for a visit, if you still have some chance of interacting with them,
Yeah.
while you feel comfortable with yourself and with whatever you do, you can kind of go to the edge of the comfort zone because that's how new things are being created in this idea. Do you understand?
I do. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Any other ideas or comments or questions?
How long have you lived as a collective and
Collective. If we were to count it in your times, we would be living 4-5 times longer than your world, which is impossible to say in years or something. If you imagine that as they say that say your world was somewhat 4 point something billions years, if they say so from the physical point of view of the earth, we would double that and multiply it 4 to 5 times. We are, but again, the perception of time not really allowing to, because everything's evolving into something. So where is the point where we actually became us, and because we were something else before, and if if you understand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not so, we will wish you very, very good evening or late night. And we thank you for the interaction which has been provided by words and by sitting here, being here with the parts of us which is being expressed through this vehicle.
Thank you very much.
And we thank you for being here with us.
Thank you as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a few moments to disconnect.